Welcome to UFO Headline News with me, Heidi Hollis. Today is Monday, January 1st, 2018. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope that it was a blast last night bringing in the new year and that 2018 is absolutely blessed, joyful, and fun. Now, we're going to begin our UFO reports for today. UFO sighting in Charleston, South Carolina. Oh, this is a UFO blast from the past. This occurred November 30th, 1980. That's way back. It's not that awful, but in brief, the witness states, I was a loadmaster on a C-141 transport aircraft. We left Charleston Air Force Base and was paced by UFO to Dover Air Force Base. In more detail, the witness states, I was a loadmaster, and he's repeating, blah, 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 aircraft. Okay, loadmaster on a C-141 transport aircraft. We took off from Charleston Air Force Base, going to Dover Air Force Base, Delaware, when we pick up an object on radar. The object was pacing our aircraft. We reported the incident to the tower. They also saw the object, but said we may have a problem with our radar. Once we landed at Dover, the techs checked out the radar on the aircraft and found no problems. We then took off from Dover Air Force Base, heading to Ireland. Halfway across the Atlantic Ocean, the object returned and continued to pace us the rest of the way across the ocean. We once again contacted the tower to report the incident, and the tower confirmed that they also had the object on radar. At this, we were asked if the crew wanted to file a UFO report. Ireland's ahead of us. We discussed it as a crew and decided it would be bad for our careers, so no report was filed. Oh, go figure. So, absolutely fascinating. So, apparently, these can be tracked on radar. How about that? So, radar screens must be filled. The next UFO sighting. Oh, another UFO blast from the past. UFO sighting in Chicago, Illinois, right where I'm at. This occurred March 31st, 1972. Ancient history. In brief, the witness states, orb entered through living room window, went up and down and around me, then exited out through the front door. In more detail, they state, in April 1972, my mother, brother, and myself were sitting in the living room when a burnt orange sphere entered through the living room window. I was standing in the center of the living room when the object went around and up and down me about 3 or 4 times, then exited through the front door. My mother did not see the orb, but my brother did, in which at that point he believed me from when I told him about the craft I had seen in early February 1972. Ooh, sounds like they were following up with him. And that first UFO report, I cannot help but to think that UFO was checking out what kind of stuff they had in that plane. What do you think? Could be. All right. This next one. Oh, get this. Another UFO blast from the past within the same time frame. UFO sighting in Chicago, Illinois. This occurred January 31st, 1972. In brief, the witness states, going to friend's house, saw object hovering over trees in backyard. Only remember getting to my friend's house and was told I was 2 hours late. In more detail, the witness states, I left my house by the back door to go to my friend's house. He lived on the next row house from mine. As I cut through the backyard, there was some light. I looked to my right, and at treetop height, I saw a cigar-shaped craft hovering over the top of the trees where we kids played football. It was an red, orange in color and made no sound. I remember standing there looking at it, and then there was nothing. The next thing I remember was beating on my friend's door. My friend answered the door, and we went upstairs to his room. Some of my friends were there. They all stated that I was a few hours late. I do not know how that happened. Abduction. I'm just saying. Okay, next UFO sighting. This occurred sighting triangle in Smithtown, New York. Wow, this occurred just December 26, 2017. In brief, they state, I was stargazing when I noticed the movement of a triangular shaped craft. In more detail, they state, I went outside to my front door deck to have a smoke at 7:10 p.m. on December 26, 2017. While smoking, I was stargazing and looked to the north when a triangular shaped craft with rectangular dull lights at each point moved quickly without any noise in a southern direction. The entire sighting lasted about 2 to 3 seconds. I ran back into the house to tell my daughter and came back out to see if it would return, but we haven't seen it since. This next UFO sighting, oh boy, another UFO blast from the past. Those always seem to be more interesting, don't they? This happened in Biloxi, Mississippi, November 1st, 1979. In brief, the witness states 7 to 9 teens observe UFO, which was pursued by helicopters with searchlights. In more detail, they state, I have never reported this story and have only shared it with my closest family and friends. Those who know me well enough to know I do not lie, nor do I embellish stories. Between August 1976 and May 1979, I attended Fernwood Junior High School, Pass Road, Biloxi, Mississippi 39531, for my 7th, 8th, and 9th grade years. So it has been nearly 40 years since my UFO experience. That being said, though I am a little vague on the exact date or time, the circumstances are still as clear in my mind as if they had happened yesterday. One evening, I was among a group of friends who had just finished band practice. There were probably 7 to 9 of us waiting for our parents to pick us up. If I remember correctly, it was for concert band, and it had to have been at least 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m., maybe a little later than that. After practice was finished, we were all huddled at the back of the school where it looked over the football field. On the other side of the field was an area of woods, and past that lies the beaches. It was completely dark outside, and I don't remember being cold, so I believe it was in the late summer or early fall sometime between September and December. The sky was completely clear and illuminated by only the stars and the moon, with a faint glow from some street lights on the front side of the school, north of our position, and from the businesses which lined Beach Boulevard, approximately a mile away on the other side of the woods, to the south. Biloxi was east of our location, and Gulfport was to our west. Also lying east of our location was Kessler Air Force Base. Interesting how these things surround around Air Force bases, don't it? My father was stationed there. We were all gathered and just talking, when someone in the group noticed a bright light that appeared at the top of the trees. Since it was on the other side of the field, I estimate it was approximately 200 feet plus away from our school, our location, and based on its position above the field, I estimate that it had an approximate diameter of 40 to 60 feet. It was a bright white sphere that was completely silent and slowly glided just above the tree line towards the direction of Gulfport until it was out of our line of sight. It only took about 30 seconds for it to disappear past the treetops. After a moment of silent disbelief, a buzz of talking incurred with questions about the source of the light. But what really happened next sent the conversation into a frenzy. As I said, the sphere was completely silent, but approximately 20 seconds after it disappeared, a group of helicopters came into view at the top of the trees to our east. They were not in a straight line, but in some kind of formation spread out from the tree line towards the beach. We heard them loud and clear before we even saw them, which squashed the point that the sphere was too far away for us to hear. And they followed the same exact path across the top of the trees, east to west, hurriedly scanning below with searchlights along their path as they passed the school. About that time we heard our parents blow their car horns, and we went running up to the front of the school. We loaded into the car, I was riding with a friend, and excitedly began to describe our experience. We were headed east on Pass Road towards home. I lived in Thrower Park, which was base housing. No sooner had we started driving down Pass Road when 4 to 5 police cars, with lights and sirens blaring, sped past us in the direction of Gulfport. This only fueled our speculations. The next day I looked in the newspapers for any word of the events of the previous evening, but there was nothing. Wow, the secrets those people have to live with over there. Of course, we spoke of it at school, and I kept watch in the newspapers for several weeks, but eventually gave up on finding out what happened that night. Over the years, I have thought of our experience often and wondered about the truth, but in my mind, I have no doubt about what we saw. During my father's 20-year career in the Air Force, he worked on mission-specific equipment for aircraft, and I was in and around aircraft frequently when I would visit the hangars where he worked. Some of the mission equipment he worked on was for the hurricane hunters, and I was very aware of what a weather balloon was and what it looked like. I only think it was the Roswell weather balloon. Nope. So much so that as a child I wanted to grow up to be a weather person. I was captivated by weather and the hurricane hunters. We had also lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and been to the hot air balloon festivals on several occasions during my childhood. I wish I could say I remember the date and the names of the other kids who were present that night, but other than my recollection of the experience and a few nicknames, I am at a loss. How I wish we had the internet then. I may not have been able to find any information back then, but I have never forgotten and would love to know if there is anyone else out there who went to Fernwood Junior High during that period and who has not forgotten it either. All right, next UFO report. This happened in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. This occurred September 24th, 2017. In brief, just hovering over trees and then took off. In more detail, which isn't much, I was on summer vacation with my camera at night, and I looked up to the trees and saw it there just hovering. 3 blue lights. Then it just took off with 3 blue quick streaks in the sky. That's a cool one, though. Another UFO sighting in Plainfield, New Jersey. This occurred December 21st, 2017. It was a thin light that shot through the sky. I saw it for about 1 second. The witness states in more detail, I was out with my dog and just so happened to look up when I saw a light streak across the sky super fast. To estimate speed, no planes that we have would have been able to catch it. As I saw it, I got the impression that it just went out of my line of sight by distance. It was going away from, and the color was sort of like a blue-red. I'm just reading this stuff. English is chopped up. I just read it. It looked as if I could make out the 2 colors. Shooting star came to mind. The next UFO sighting states in Lehi, Utah. Or is it Lehi? Lehigh? Could be Lehigh. This occurred on January 19th, 2016. A little back there now. Disc-shaped object punched through cloud deck maneuvered back into clouds.
I'm a robot vacuum cleaner, so yeah, I got one gig. I suck up dirt. So pardon my inferiority complex about Geico, who does so much more. Like, not only could they save their customers money on car insurance, but they got fast and friendly claim service too. And an award-winning mobile app. Plus access to licensed agents 24/7. Who am I kidding? I can't even do corners. Uh-oh, choking hazard.
Popcorn kernels! Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
In more detail, the witness states, I was traveling north on I-15 to the Salt Lake Airport on January 19th, 2016 to catch a flight. Time was just past 10 a.m. and I had passed the Lehigh exit and was rounding that loop in the highway before you get to exit 289. There had been a light snow that night and what seemed to be low-level gray clouds, almost like an ice fog covering the northern portion of the skies and below the peaks of the mountains to the east. South of there, the skies had clear and in general, the cloud deck seemed to be rising. As I came around on that broad turn on I-15 just north of Lehigh, some motion to my left, off to the northwest as I was on that highway turn, caught my eye. I was astonished by what looked to be a grayish, similar in color to the cloud deck, disk with structure and a central dome pop through the bottom of the clouds. It then quickly maneuvered on all three axes as it dropped clear of the cloud deck and then went back into the cloud hole that it had punched through. Once it went back into the clouds, I could see some swirling clouds and also part of a cloud wall on the far side of the cloud hole. The object was visible for between 5 to 10 seconds. Wow, it's like something out of a sci-fi movie. Cool. The hole in the cloud deck lasted for 20 to 30 seconds. I could not believe what I had just witnessed. I was stunned as I continued driving on I-15. The size of the object was amazing, and I would guess that the diameter of the object was on the order of 200 yards. That's a monster. Once I reached the airport and turned in my rental car and then got checked in for my flight, I pulled out a couple of sheets of paper and immediately sketched out what I had seen and jotted my notes down as I sat in a quiet passenger lounge. I finished my notes and sketch by 11:40 a.m. that same morning. Ooh, that's a pretty cool one. All right. The next UFO sighting occurred in Maryland. This happened October 6, 2017. Oh, wow, they say abducted. Saw the interior of the ship was white with a circular glass bottom. In more detail, and they have a lot, I woke up at 1:30 a.m. to the sound of a break-in. I grabbed my handgun from my bedside drawer and went to the bedroom door to confront the intruder, but was suddenly rendered unconscious as I touched the doorknob. I woke up clothless and cold in a pill-shaped glass container. The lid was open, so I was able to stumble out onto the floor around the container. I felt drugged and could barely walk, but I thought I'd been kidnapped by someone, so I was urgently trying to find an escape route. The room I was in was made of composite materials, namely concrete and plastic with fluorescent lights. Well, this is a cheap UFO. I limped into a hallway that was tunnel-shaped and followed a blue glow coming from down the hall. As I walked, I came out of the tunnel and entered a large cylindrical room lined with vehicles on hooks along the walls. They were human vehicles, mostly Japanese and German cars, motorcycles, but some vehicles were clearly from the American military. Oh, great. In the center of the room was what looked like a metal tree that was 6 stories tall, with glowing blue leaves. But upon closer inspection, this tree was a large metal cylinder, and the leaves were capsules, much like the one I'd woken up in, except these still had people inside of them and were radiating a neon blue glow. As I drew my eyes further up the tree, I noticed some blue wires moving around in the dark area toward the ceiling. These clumps of wires suddenly floated down towards me and turned to reveal that they had faces in them, each with two large dark eyes and narrow slits for noses and mouths. It's hard to describe. Yikes. And I hate to put it this way. But think of a stereotypical, quote, gray alien face, and picture it floating in a tangled up mess of tentacles. Wow. There were three of them, one smiling, two frowning. There was an exchange of words and charades between myself and the smiling one for roughly 10 minutes. But I was so exhausted, and they were so advanced, that there was no pertinent information shared between us. I passed out, then woke up again, face down, in a puddle of my own drool on a glass floor. I was too tired to move, so I tilted my head up just enough to take a look around the room that was circular and was about 150 square feet in size and a bright sterile white color. One of the tentacle creatures was in the room, but was busy facing away and operating a set of strange controls with no buttons or levers. I laid my head back down, but saw through the glass floor that we had risen out of a deep black hole that was dug into a grassy plain. A rock-shaped lid closed around the hole to cover it as we flew further up. This is when I realized I was in a spacecraft, and we had actually been in a silo of some sort that's here on Earth somewhere. I passed out and was awoken to the sensation of being dropped back first onto my bed with a hard thud. I checked my phone and it read 6:30 a.m. The whole trip had been exactly 5 hours. I'm not going into further detail, but I found an object had been inserted and cauterized into my right leg, and I had a run-in with some men in suits within 4 days of the abduction. I've never believed in abductions or UFOs or men in black or any of that, but now I've got no choice. Yeah, thanks a lot, aliens. I'm annoyed that there's no official place to get legitimate information or help on this subject, since the experience was traumatic and any kind of clarity would help fix that. MUFON is the closest I've found, so this is where I'm reporting this information. Hopefully, it helps someone somewhere. Oh, gosh. I have got to say, there needs to be more of an official response to people being abducted against their will. Since when is it okay for anyone to be abducted? When? If someone's complaining about it, shouldn't our government be responding? Shouldn't someone be doing something, saying something? If anything, I hope with sharing this story here and having these radio shows, and I welcome people to write me about whatever it is that they experience, and I will hopefully be able to lend some level-headed advice. You're not alone. The person that put this report on the MUFON site, you are not alone. There's a lot of people truly ticked out there, and I'm one of them. So welcome to the fold, though it's a party no one wishes to be a part of. And it's the new year. All right, so moving forward and keeping in the spirit of inspiring stories of mystery, we're going to speak about some angel sightings. How about that? All right, this first story is called Morning Sun Angel. This person says, it started with me keep seeing a figure at the end of my bed. I also kept seeing purple, green, and white balls of light in my room at night. One night I had just laid down. Suddenly I was outside staring at this woman who had long black hair. Her wings covered the whole of the sky. She was massive. I asked her what she wanted, shouting at her. She smiled and she told me she was an angel of the morning sun. She flapped her wings 3 times and my body went all funny. I was back in my room. I could see myself lying in bed. I was on my ceiling. I was fighting and fell back into my body. I straightaway researched the angel of the morning sun and I found scriptures of her and pictures. It was 100% the same angel. I'm still freaked out to this day as I had never heard of her before and also didn't believe in this type of thing. Could anybody tell me why this happened to me? Would be great. Wow, that's a fascinating one. I could tell you this, I have heard people who see angels on a regular basis, how some of these angels are huge, the size of mountains. So, yeah, I'm not surprised with that story. All right, the next one is called Bright Light. I sat in the garden with my 7-year-old son. Suddenly, I could see in the corner of my eye a very bright light. I looked to the left and down, and the bright light was on an ornament angel in the flower bed. Then suddenly the light disappeared. I have looked on the net and it says, I was visited by my guardian angel. How beautiful. This next story is called Reaching Out. I was 4 years old. I was in my brother's room crying. This is when I heard a sweet voice call me. I looked up towards the footboard and saw a woman with long hair lying on her right shoulder. She had on a white flowing cloth with light blue trimming surrounding by a white mist. Her arms were extended out with her palms facing upward as if she wanted to embrace me. She whispered towards me, "Come with me. I love you," in Spanish. I kept looking at her when I heard the bedroom door starting to open. I screamed as I saw my mother walked into the room. She ran to the bed and lifts me up into her arms and ran out of the room. She sat down and started praying over me and kept pouring a sweet fragrance onto my head. I was not afraid of the lady, but I do not know what happened between the time the door was opening and when I started screaming. We moved out several months later. However, to this day, I know I have someone watching over me and was protecting me for something else. The next story is called God Answers Our Prayers in His Timing. I prayed that God would show me an angel, and He did twice many years after I prayed for this. Both encounters happened when I was sleeping. I suppose angels would come to visit us on occasion when we would be most relaxed and receptive to their visitations. The first encounter I had was when I was in a dream state, walking along a dark path at night. Then suddenly the entire environment setting lit up with incredibly pure bright light as if the sun itself was shining on me. Suddenly I woke up, but no one was in the dark bedroom that I could see. So I asked in bewilderment, "What is it?" as if it was someone I was speaking to. No voice or words came forth, but the angel conveyed thoughts and pictures to my mind telepathically, showing me that I left the side door of the garage open with a picture in my mind, and then reminding me to close the door and to lock it. So I thanked the angel and got out of bed, and sure enough, the door was wide open. That's interesting, huh? This next one is called Red Lights. Over this past few months, when I have been at work, I have encountered a very intense red light, which has shone for about 4 seconds and then disappeared. When I have seen this light, I have asked others present if they could see it, but they all said no. I wondered if I was seeing things, so I don't always say anything when it appears, but a couple of weeks ago it appeared, and one of the people present with me saw it. In the building I work in, it is impossible for this light to shine in. I saw it again last night, but no one else did. Okay, that's an interesting mystery. Well, I have to say thank you so much once again for listening to UFO Headline News with me, Heidi Hollis. Be sure to check out UFOHeadlineNews.com every single day. Check out my main website, which is HeidiHollis.com, as much as you want. And also tune into my other weekly shows. I host my own program called Heidi Hollis's The Outlander Show. That's on Fridays. And I co-host on The Kevin Cook Show every Tuesday. Both shows are at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. And also check out my paranormal comic strip that's called The Outlanders. TheOutlandersComic.com, or everything I mentioned here you can find on InceptionRadioNetwork.com. And I also want to welcome you guys. If you've experienced something out of the ordinary and want some level-headed advice, or if you've seen a UFO and want to share it, feel free to write me at HeidiHollis.com or go to dustoutlander@gmail.com and write me an email. Remember always to keep an open mind so you can stay informed and inspired.